kind of picking our way through the festivals and learning how to get ourselves centered on things other than ourselves. And try to pick our way through what pleases Abba. You know, when I read the scriptures, there's some amazing statements in the scriptures where God speaks to the people about how they celebrate. And there's times when he says, you know, what you're doing is pleasing to me. But you know, there's times when God says, I hate your celebrations. Man, I sure don't want God saying I hate your celebrations. He does. Your offerings and your sacrifices are detestable to me. I mean, can you imagine being the prophet that's got that job? I mean, you're going to go into Jerusalem and the people are making sacrifices there. And of course, all the false prophets are saying, yay, 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 let's do this thing. Let's make sure we do it right. And you know, they're quibbling and arguing about how to do it right. And did you cut the lamb right? And did you cut the beef right? And did you save the right portions? And was there too much fat in this one? And you know, this offering goes this way. And you got to know, I mean, that's human nature. That within the tradition of the Levites and the priests, you know, a lot of discussion about how do you do it right? How do you make it right? And everybody had opinions and everything like that as they would approach each of the festivals. And they would be focused in on, you know, what is law, what is right, how do we do it right, how do we make sure we don't offend a holy God. You know, I mean, let's make sure it's timed right, let's make sure the order's right, let's make sure nobody steps across this bound unless you're qualified to get, and then you go to the next boundary, and all kinds of, come on, human nature hasn't changed. So we can take human nature today, read back, and we can understand what was going on. And in the midst of that, you're the prophet that has the task of walking into Jerusalem and say, your sacrifices stink! I submit you're not likely to be voted most likely prophet to succeed. You know, that's not a pleasant message. Yeshua came and said, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you have a habit of stoning the prophets. My prophets, the right ones, the ones that come. Now, what gives them that? Because, come on, they're there. They're celebrating what God has set aside. They're doing things. Certainly, we don't believe that God is saying, that's it, I'm finished with sacrifices. Because he never said that. But what he said is this, that you're sacrificing, you're doing it from an outward observance only, and I've always been after the heart. It's a false understanding of Scripture to position the Brit Hadashah, the New Covenant, against the Tanakh, what people would call the Old Covenant, and say one replaces the other, one is superior to the other in the sense that you know, we wipe away the old. No. The heart was always there. That's what God was always after. That's what he was always after. And so he refers to David as a man after his own heart. Okay, Abraham was called a friend of God. Not a legalistic observer of the rituals of God, but a friend of God. And so I see a theme that runs through the scriptures where you have a generation that comes into a heart covenant relationship with Almighty God, followed by a generation that walks in the blessings of their father's heart covenant, followed by a generation that simply knows that's what grandfather believed, followed by a generation that then says, we don't need that anymore. Let's do a new thing. We're a new generation. We're going to do our new thing. And within 4 generations, if not less, you have a generation that may or may not even be keeping the outward form of religion, but they do not have the heart covenant. God's covenants have always been a matter of heart. And so when the prophet says, behold, the Lord says, the day's coming when I'm going to make a new covenant with you, Israel. But it's not going to be in your flesh. I'm going to circumcise you where? In your heart. It's going to be, the law is going to be written in your heart. It's still what? It's still the law. It's still the law, but it's kept in the heart. You know, I'm a father. I have 9 children, so I have some experience of watching children grow up. I have an experience of, you know, seeing a baby born and holding that newborn in your arm and all the dreams and hopes that you have for that child, and then walking that child through life and seeing that child grow up and mature and then beginning to watch as they begin to sprout their wings and do their own thing, and begin to walk either in the ways of the Lord or not. But you watch that happen, and you realize that what you're after always is the child's heart commitment to God.
That's right.
Heart commitment to God. I'm not after simply blind obedience to me, the dad, because you can get that, by the way. Any father can do that. You can manipulate. You can just manipulate wife, manipulate kids, manipulate the household, and everything like that. But the evidence of that, as soon as the children get young enough, they're gone. They're gone from church. They're gone from family. They're gone. They're just gone. I mean, and it seems like whatever you thought you had put in them, you wake up one day and they've rejected it all. Okay, because what they had was the form. Now, usually when that is a result of the fact that you, the parent, had the form of religion. That's how they got. They got the form, but they didn't get the heart covenant. But contrast that with someone that has a heart. Yeshua picked up on that. He had a theme, and he said, I'm going to tell you about two sons. And the father said to the first son, I want you to go do thus and so. And the son said, I'll do it. And then he walked away and said, Dad's always laying stuff on me. He's always telling me to do things. I don't know why he doesn't spread the work around. Always comes on my shoulder. I've got other things to do. Dad just doesn't understand these kinds of things. I'm just going to do what I want to do. And he doesn't do it. Now the second son, he goes to and says, son, I want you to go do this. And said, Dad, I'm not going to do that. I've got other things on my plate today. And he walks away. But as he walks away, he thinks, that wasn't a good thing to say. After all my dad's done for me, after all he's laid out for me, after all that he's invested in me, that's not right. I'm going to put aside my agenda, and I'm going to go do what Dad told me. And Yeshua asked a very simple question. Which one did the will of the Father? The answer is obvious. The one that did it. the one that did it is the one that did it. Amen. Not the one that said, but the one that had an action that lined up with his Father's heart. And that's what I believe the feasts are all about. That's why, you can keep the feasts and the festivals, keep them precisely to everything you understand, and miss it.
That's true.
Or you can kind of wander your way through and stumble and do your best, and boy, you're just trying to do your best to do the things, but your heart is after God. You're hungry for your relationship with Abba, and my Bible always is filled with the idea that God appreciates that. God loves that. He's looking for that. Amen? So when we come into the festivals, the question is not your observance only. It's what's going on inside of you. Are you more hungry for God this year than last year? Are you more expecting this year than last year? Are you saying, Abba, I'm ready to, I'm not going to slide back, but I'm going to take last year's experience at Tabernacles and I'm going to ratchet up. I'm going to ratchet up. I'm going to get more into it. And along the way, you may very well learn things about how you accurately celebrate things, how you biblically celebrate things. But my question is not, are you getting more accurate? It's, are you getting more heart connected to Abba? Because the saddest place to be in the world is to have everything lined up accurately and miss the relationship. You say, well, Pastor, how on earth could that happen? Well, Yeshua says that in the end times there are going to be many. I would not be disturbed if Yeshua said there's going to be those. I wish he had said there's going to be those. But he says there's going to be many. And every time I come to this verse, every time Holy Spirit brings it to me in preaching, there's a sadness and a heaviness in it. I mean, when I say it, there's a heaviness in my spirit in that. There are going to be many who say, Lord, Lord, look what we did in your name. So they know enough to call him Lord. That tells me they're more than likely in the church. They're doing things. In fact, go and read it. They're raising the dead. They're involved in preaching. They're involved in, and obviously I think they're involved in celebrating the things that God says to celebrate. So they're not backbench warmers. They're involved maybe in leadership. They're involved in the church. They know enough to call him Lord. Look what we did in your name. And he says, be gone from my presence. I never knew you. I never knew you. And that's sobering. That's sobering. Because it calls us back to the Spirit of God in the book of Revelation saying to the Ephesian church, you're doing all these great things, and I applaud that. They're good. In that case, they were doing good things, but he says, I have this one thing against you. You've left your first love. You no longer love me like you used to, back when you fell in love with me. That means that somehow entering into a proper relationship with God is not a matter of accepting doctrinal truths. It's a matter of entering into a relationship. It's not a matter of simply I say, Jesus, I make you Lord of my life because that's what the pastor's telling me I need to say, and I sure want to go to heaven and I don't want to go to hell. So, yeah, I say it, but it's a matter of, have I really understood who he is? My God. Have I understood the gift that he gave in Yeshua, that he paid a price for me when I was worth nothing? While we were yet sinners, Yeshua died for us. In other words, he didn't wait and say, oh, you repented, now I died for you. While you were still in sin, he died for you. And so it's when I recognize the awesomeness of who God is, but the generosity of his gift to me, that I respond in love to him. That's the beginning of relationship. So when we come to celebrate the feast, there's an interesting command of God in Deuteronomy chapter 16. And in that chapter, he's talking about how to celebrate tabernacles. Beginning at verse 13, celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days after you have gathered the produce of your threshing floor and your winepress. And then verse 14, be joyful at your feast, you, your sons, your daughters, your maidservants, your menservants, and the Levites, the aliens, let's call them the goyim, the fatherless, and the widows who live in your towns. Be joyful. Now, I don't know about you, but I grew up around church. My parents were church-going people. I grew up in the military, so my church was a non-denominational Protestant chapel. I mean, I knew there were Methodists and Presbyterians and all that kind of stuff, but in my world, you could be Protestant, Catholic, or Jewish. And in fact, Protestants and Catholics used the same chapel. I was a little altar boy in the Protestant part. I don't know what we called them, but the Catholic altar boy and I we'd cross services. There'd be mass, and then we're coming in. And so when all the Catholics left the chapel, we had half an hour to Protestantize the chapel. We got to somehow take this Catholic-looking chapel and we got to make it into a Protestant chapel. And so he's running around getting rid of all the things that would identify it as a Catholic chapel. I mean, little burning incense and candles, and there was probably a statue or two he had to get rid of and everything. And meanwhile, mine was to get up and change the very center focus of the chapel to look Protestant, and there was a crucifix hanging right over the altar. And God forbid that anybody would see me doing this, but I'm climbing right up on the altar, and you reach up and you take that big cross and you pick it up and you twist it, because it was a dual use cross. And just like the army, we lift it up and we turn it around, and now it's a plain cross. And I used to laugh at those days. I say, for the Catholics, Jesus hangs this way. For the Protestants, he hangs this way. and you couldn't tell it was a crucifix on the back. And so hocus pocus, we wave our door, and then you'd walk in, and this is a Protestant chapel. Absolutely amazing. So I grew up in that kind of an environment, and somewhere along the way, I picked up that holiness means that you are somber, that you're quiet, you probably fold your hands, look a little down rather than up, you don't smile, and God forbid you ever laugh in church. And so my whole upbringing was, you sit in church as a child, you sit quietly. Now you should learn to sit quietly, but I got this image you know, that somehow the more somber you look, the more holy you look. You know what I mean? Is that true? And it seemed to me as people got older that were like holy, they got more somber. You know, and it's, and I didn't even grow up around Pentecostal environments or anything like that. I mean, that's the environment I grew up in. But you know, everybody be outside the chapel. We're talking, Mom and Dad are talking, everybody's talking, shaking hands with people as we're waiting for the Protestantized church to open up. You know, and then the chapel doors would open up, and we'd walk in, and it's like this cone of silence came over you. You know, you walk in, and suddenly, you know, we're stand up and sing 3 dead hymns. You know, listen to dead sermons. You know, put money in the thing, listen to the choir and smile and think, I hope they're over. You know, and then we'd come to that thing called the benediction, which I always thought as a little kid meant, thank God we're out of here. You know, and you go out, but you had one last thing to do. The chaplain would stand at the door as you're leaving, you know, shaking hands, and you were supposed to make some pleasantries with him. Nice sermon, chaplain. I sure hoped he never asked me what it was.
What did you get out of it?
I didn't have a clue, you know. But as soon as we're outdoors, hey, how you doing? What's going on at work? You know, it's like it was like Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, you know, you're friendly out here. You walk in church and you become this, and then you walk outside and you become alive. And so I grew up thinking that holiness was that. And then you watch the movies, of course, and who are the most holy people? Well, you know that if you're in New England. I mean, that's got to be the nuns and the priests. And the nuns live in a nunnery. No, they don't call it a nunnery. What do they call it? Convent. That always sounded like where you said convicts, still convent. You know, but they live in that place, you know, and they wrap themselves up. I mean, you know, you're wrapped up, so, I mean, this much is showing. At least in my days, that's what they did, you know, and Sister Mary Jane, you know, walk around like this. Well, the same for the priests. They lived in, you know, the priestry, you know, and they're over here. And if you're really one of the real holy ones of those, you became a monk, you know, and you went off into, I don't know where, the Western Priory, and dug there and made jelly and sang songs, you know. I don't know. And you know, when I was about 14 or 15, my brother and sister grew up in the same environment as I did, and they went to a Billy Graham crusade, and they did this thing called Give Your Life to Jesus, except it really changed their lives. I mean, all of a sudden they were going to Bible studies. They were hungry for they started talking about the Bible. It was amazing, you know. I mean, and my brother sat in the kitchen. I'll never forget that, down in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, where he said, you know, Don, you need to give your life to Jesus. And I can remember what I said exactly. I said, not now. I'm going to have my fun first. Then I'll give my life to. See, it was never a question that you need to do that, because why? I heard that if you don't, you go to hell, and if you do, you go to heaven, and who wants to go to hell? But it's like, but I looked at my sister, who by then had become a really fundamentalist Baptist, you know, I mean, no lipstick, no makeup, no this, and no joy, you know, it's like, and so I looked, you know, gee, if I do that, you know, certainly Elvis goes out. I got to get rid of him. I probably got to get rid of the jitterbug. I'm dating myself now. I got to get rid of the dance. I got to get rid of the movies. I got to get rid of fun, laughter, jokes. You know, things. I just got. It's don't. And I knew someday I'm going to be I'll probably get to be 20 and be a stodgy old person at 20. You know, and I'll become an adult. But while I'm a kid, I want to have fun, and I made that comment. Because that was my image. But the summer of my 16th year, I met 2 amazing men. They were unmarried. They were brothers who had a shoe store in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and absolutely head over heels in love with the Lord. And I don't even know how it happened, but my best friend and I, Bill McConnell and I, found out that they were having a thing at their estate house. It really wasn't an estate house. It was just a nice house with a swimming pool. And teenagers all over town would go there, and it was summertime, you'd go swimming, you'd play volleyball or something like that, you'd have hot dogs and hamburgers. And then, you know, the payment that you had to pay for that. The payment that you had to pay for that was you all sat in a big circle in the backyard, and these 2 guys would talk about what Jesus meant to them. And You know, I mean, but that's a fair price. Come on. I mean, in the summer, you're bored, nothing to do. A beautiful swimming pool. You know, you're going to go there. There's a great opportunity to meet people. There's food. Come on, I'm a teenager. Food and as many hot dogs and hamburgers as you want. And the price you're going to pay is for about half an hour. You're going to sit there while these two guys get up. You know, and my first thought was, okay, well, I'll pay a price because I thought, yeah, okay. I'm living through sermons on Sundays. Certainly I can live through this. And I'll never forget that the first time the two of them got up and started talking, it sure didn't sound like a sermon. At least no sermon I'd ever heard. They were sharing scriptures. They had Bibles. They had their Bibles open. They were sharing with us. And I don't remember a word they said. You know, nothing came off the pages. Nothing. Oh, I didn't know the Bible said that. What I heard and focused for the whole time was relationship. These guys knew Jesus. I mean, they talked about him as if he was alive, as if he was their best friend. They had a relationship, and the second thing I noticed about him is they smiled all the time. They were happy. They seemed to enjoy life. And later, when I got to meet them in the context of their shoe store, they were that way in the shoe store. I mean, do you guys ever have a down day? You know, and it seemed to me they didn't. And that set me up. That set me up to understand that the question about receiving Jesus in my life was not a question of my doctrinal beliefs, but it was a question of whether I was willing to surrender my life into relationship with one who would bring life to me. And that meant that I had to do an evaluation that what I had wasn't life. And it shifted from, am I going to go to heaven or am I going to go to hell? That was still there. But it shifted into a component, am I really alive? I mean, I can go out every weekend. I can go to the movies. I was a pretty sociable guy, especially with my friend Bill and I. And we didn't do bad things. We just enjoyed life as a teenager. We had a lot of fun, and we did crazy things. You know, but the question was, am I really alive? And as I compared my life to other kids around me, it's like I'm alive. But when I compared my life to those two young men who taught us every week in their home, I realized there was a quality of life in them I'd never seen in church, at least the church I was going to. And I wanted it. And now, interestingly enough, they sowed a lot. They weren't the ones that reaped. It was an evangelist preaching a meeting about a month later that I went to. He's the one that reaped what they sowed. I'm sitting with my friend Bill at a meeting that an altar call is given, and it's like, I want that. Boom, up goes my hand. But see, other people put their hand up because they didn't want to go to hell. But my hand's up because I want a relationship. God, I want you. I don't know what want you means, but I want you. There's so much more. I know it's there. I want that. I don't know what it means. And I went forward to surrender into a relationship, to fall in love with the one who loved me. And I found an interesting dynamic. I've had more fun since. And I'm having more fun the older I get. Come on. I mean, that's the way it should be. The more I discover, the more fun I have. As we walk through the Moeds, the more I found about God, the more excited I am. Come on, are you not more excited that you know you can rewrite your past?
Yes!
I mean, come on. It's like, it's in there. And once you open your eyes and see it, it's in there all over the place. Why didn't you see it before? Well, but we see it now. And you step into things, and it's that spiral I was talking about on Sabbath, where your faith comes around, but you're not going around the same circle. We're here in the Sukkot, but we're not where we were last year. Amen. And last year we were so happy! You were so happy last year, and you didn't even know you could rewrite your past.
Hallelujah.
I mean, think about it. Some of you were swinging around this pole last year. And you didn't know you could rewrite your past. Now take the quantum leap from last year, not knowing that, to what you know now, if Yeshua tarries another 10 years, what do you think the 10 more of these moeds is going to look like?
Whoa,
See, we're not to be in a rut about this, but we're to come back to the basics. And so, God says that the basic requirement for the celebration of tabernacles is joy. You know, I thought the basic requirement was to live in a sukkah, and you know, you can only have either 2 sides or 3 sides, because the word for sukkah is 3 Hebrew letters, and one of them is closed on 3 sides, so that means you have one side open. The other one's got a little thing up here, so you can have 2.5 sides, because that's that Hebrew letter, and the other. But you can't have 4 sides. You got to have an opening, and you know, I mean, and watch out for the roof. And we got to do all these things, right? And year after year we come and we get more fine and more detailed about it. That's not it at all. Year after year after year, we're meant to come into a deeper heartbeat of what he said when he said, the quality is not your sukkah, the quality is your joy. That's right, Doug. You're meant to be the sukkah. You're meant to be the dwelling place of Abba. And the dwelling place of Abba is always a joyous place. Amen. When you get to heaven, there's going to be a lot of joy. Amen.
Amen, yes.
You know, we might have to tiptoe by some rooms. Those are the ones where people think there's no joy in heaven, and we don't want to let them know. You know, so, yay, we'll walk by their room and we'll go. See, Episcopalians, you know, they don't. You think it's quiet in heaven. Glory to God. Now listen, be joyful at your feast. You and your sons and grandsons and your daughters and your granddaughters. You got to be joyful. You got to be joyful. Amen. You got to be joyful. You got to be filled with joy. You got to be filled with joy. Your men servants and your maid servants. Now think about that. What kind of a quality of life are you living as an owner of a manservant or a maidservant? You're living a life of such quality that they're happy. Think about it. Let's get it out of that and put it into the context of a business owner. If you own a business, my question would be, at this season, are your employees filled with joy? See, don't get in your sukkah and say, oh, I'm serving God. And back there you got employees who think you're Uncle Scrooge, who think you're the worst thing around. You know, you won't give them a break, you work bad. You know, well, they're your men servants and maid servants. They're to be joyful. It's up to you to bring joy into the place. Come on. And then he says also the aliens that live among you. That's not the people from Mars. That's us Gentiles. Glory to God. I just made up my mind. I'm going to outjoy any of my Jewish friends. That's true. I was in Jerusalem. Donna and I were standing there at Ben Yehuda Street one night, and there were a bunch of Hasidic guys came up, and they put out a stand. They're selling their Hasidic music, and we've got some of it tonight. Maybe we'll play it later. Yeah. And these guys, they start dancing, and boy, they're swirling and dancing. I was so tempted to jump into the middle of that. You know, it's like I said, you know, it's like, you know. And then I watched Rabbi Shearson of the Lubavitch. You know, you see him, he's in his 90s, you know, and he's not quite dancing. But he gets so excited, he takes his cup and starts banging it up and down, just splashing all over the place, and he doesn't care. Come on. Come on. That the aliens among you are to be joyful at the feast. Joyful. Filled with joy. Well, where's the joy? We're going to talk about that this week. Where is the joy? How can you be joyful? What are you joyful about? I mean, if you can't be joyful where you are, God help you.
That's right.
I'll take you all on a bus, we'll drop you in Haiti and let you spend a week there and then come back and see if you have any reason to be joyful. But let's get that out of Deuteronomy and pull it all the way over into the New Testament and find out in 1 Thessalonians, Rabbi Shaul has something to say. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, listen to this. He's given instructions to the early church. Now we ask you, brothers, to respect those who work hard among you, who are over you in the Lord, and who admonish you. Boy, that'll preach. Come on. Respect those who work hard among you, who are, what's that phrase? Over you. Now, nobody's over me. I'm an American. I don't have anybody over me. I do. I have a pastor over me. Praise God. You know what that means? He's my covering. He prays for me. He intercedes for me. He's not there to dictate to my life. He's there to straighten me up when I need it, to encourage me when I need it, and to always believe I can do it.
That's right.
Amen? Now we ask you, brothers, to respect those who work hard among you, who are over you in the Lord, who admonish you. Hold them in the highest regard in love because of their work. Live in peace with each other. Okay, we've had many messages on that. Yeah, this sounds like Paul, man. He's on that free, no strife. Let's get into peace with each other. Verse 14, and we urge you, brothers, warn those who are idle, encourage the timid, help the weak, be patient with everyone. Yeah, these great things we got to work on as believers. Make sure that nobody pays back wrong for wrong, but always be kind to each other and to everyone else. Well, you listen to that sometimes, and yeah, I mean, it seems like obligations, doesn't it? Oh, I've got to love you. I've got to this. I've got to respect you. I've got to this. I've got to treat. I've got to. And then he comes to the next one. Be joyful always. Now, I always find that's amazing. He's just given a list of things that you think, I got to this, I got to love, I got to respect, I got to treat, I got to this, I got to this. And then he said, now be joyful always. I think he kind of knew that by this time they were going, be joyful always. Be filled with joy always. My. And so that joyfulness has got to come from some. Where does it come from? How do we get it? The joy that he's talking about here is not a joy of the flesh. It's not because I come up here and put on an eeny bosh and all of a sudden, man, your flesh gets stimulated. It's not because we gather all the young people in the city and say, let's have a good concert for them. And the band goes and the rock beats there and they go, yeah. And we think that somehow that means they're open to the gospel because we threw in a few Christian phrases. No, he's not talking about that kind of joy, because you know what? That joy cannot be always.
That's right.
You can't be that joyful always. Come on. The joy that's stimulated simply in the flesh, that's not there always. Watch the Patriots win a game. Yeah, wouldn't that be a nice idea? Watch the Patriots win a game and you're filled with joy. For how long? Till the next week. Come on. It's not even the joy of a pay raise. Pay raise is great, but by the end of the first week, first thing you're excited you get a pay raise until you find out how much is left after they take the taxes out of the pay raise.
Right.
And and your $100 pay raise doesn't put much cash in your hand. And then you soon do what? You adjust to a standard of living where, boom, you're spending that. And so the joy of the pay raise, well, what about the joy of a new car? Well, that lasts maybe a little longer, like a month or two, and then you've got to do whatever you're doing, making payments, or you find out the upkeep, or suddenly you find out it uses more gas than the other one did. And, it's like the earth gives us temporary joy, and the modern contemporary church is offering the world secular joy and calling it the joy of the Lord, but the joy of the Lord is always. It lasts forever. It lasts forever. Amen? It lasts forever. It is a deep heart joy. In fact, it is a fruit of the Spirit, and we'll get into that one later. But my question is, how do you get into that joy then? It's not because, that something happened to your flesh, but it's because you recognize something. You're able to see something. And because you see it in the right perspective, joy is attached to it. I have been puzzled for years when I go to Haiti looking at the little children. Isn't that right, Donna? We get those little they just love on you. They come around, they hug you, ear-to-ear grins. Even the ones who are physically sick, they're trying to smile. It's the most amazing thing. You go into a village and here's this little hut, and you look in, and here's maybe a 4 foot long by 2 foot wide mat, maybe elevated, maybe not. That's the bed, but the bed for who? I mean, there's a mom and a dad and 3 or 4 little children. Well, who gets that? You know? And then you might look over in the corner and there's a little baby laying on a blanket in the dirt. And you know, you try not to stare, but you walk in and you're gracious, but your eyes are scoping, and you're thinking, so where are the plates to eat from? Where are the cooking utensils? And you finally find a pot, one pot, everything gets cooked in the one pot. You don't see a fork and a spoon, and most often you don't see a glass or a cup. There may be 1 or 2. And you think, well, where are these kids' extra clothes? And you realize what they're wearing is what they've got. But they're smiling. They're so happy you're there. And you watch that, and I think, well, maybe they're smiling because I'm here, but while I drive on the bus, I look down the streets, and when I'm walking through the villages, I glance down streets where they don't know I'm here, and I look, and the kids are still playing, and they're having fun. And they don't have Nintendo, and they don't have this, and they don't have that, and they don't have the latest Nike shoes. And what gives? What gives? And it's because we have saturated our culture with things and have the most spoiled generation ever in America. And what they're thankful and joyful about is they're alive another day.
Come on.
And they can find joy in the day, and they can find joy in a stick. Why? Because I can still play with a stick and hit this rock around, and we can have fun because we're alive.
That's right.
And my belly may be a little bit hungry, but you know, at least I ate 2 days ago, or I ate yesterday.
That's right.
And the joy is coming because I've discovered what it means to be grateful and thankful. Ezra chapter 3 verse 11 says, with praise and thanksgiving they sang to the Lord. He is good. His love to Israel endures forever. Ki tov ki le'olam hasdo. That was a constant praise coming out of Israel. The Lord is good, and His mercy extends forever. It is an everlasting covenant we have here. We may be up, we may be down, but His covenant never fails. Psalm 100 verse 4 says, enter His gates with what? Thanksgiving, and His courts with praise. But in most churches, it's like, no, we come in, you know, carrying the weight of the previous week, you know, we come, and it's like, okay, here we are, Pastor, make us thankful. Have some upbeat music that picks us up. Preach a sermon that will really motivate us. Put a smile on our lips. But the Bible says we're to enter with thanksgiving.
That's right.
We're to skip in. I am so glad to be in church today. Hallelujah. I am so glad. You know, we're to run in and say, I am so glad I can bring my tithes today. I am a cheerful, joyful giver. I can't wait till I can give. Why? Because giving means I've received.
That's right. Amen.
Duh, come on. It means I've received. I can tithe because something's been coming into my life. I enter His gates thankful. Thankful. Thankful for where I live. Thankful for who I live with. Thankful for what's around me. Thankful for what's God given me. Donna and I never enter this church. Never enter this church with a sense of gloom and disappointment. I've never once walked in this building and said, oh, God, get me away from these people. And I say that because I know pastor friends who that is their prayer. They walk in the building, look around, and go into their study and please, Lord, can this be the year when you move me to someplace else? And then that is really sad. But I enter with thanksgiving.
Yay.
You know, I sit in my office sometime, and it's like, and it's before a service, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, my Lord, there must be 100 people in the hallway. I mean, that's what it sounds like. There's got to be 100 people. And I open the door, and no, it's all of you. Talking like 100 people. I mean, you know, absolutely amazing. Why? Because there's life in you, there's energy, there's excitement in you. So we always enter His gates with thanksgiving for you.
Yes.
We always enter His gates with thanksgiving for you. Philippians 4:6, Paul writes and says, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Do you know how to pray with thanksgiving? Oh, God, I need. God, I need. You know I need, God. You know I need. Doesn't sound like there's any thanksgiving in there. I need a job. I need money. I need this. I need deliverance. I need healing. I need. You know, how about if we come to God with thanksgiving?
That's right.
Huh? How about if we come to God and say, God, you know, I am just so thankful you're my God. If you gave me nothing else the rest of my life, what you've given me already is so exciting. If you never healed my body one more day, I'm thankful for the healing that's already come in my body over the years of my life. I am thankful, but you know what? I know you're the healer. So I'm thankful because when I bring my request to you, you're going to listen. You'll hear. And when you hear, you're going to answer, and the answer is going to be according to your faith and according to my word. I will do it. I'm thankful before I get the answer.
Amen.
If you're not praying with thanksgiving, you need to examine your relationship. You don't get healed by doctrines. You don't get peace by doctrines. You don't get out of depression by doctrines. You don't get into a place of security and joy because, well, I know the Bible says. No, because of your relationship with God who reveals himself as your heavenly Abba, who will do anything for you if you'll simply love on him. Get into a relationship with him. Wow, my goodness. Hebrews chapter 12, the writer says in verse 28, therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, let us be thankful and so worship God acceptably with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire. Listen to this in the Message Bible. Do you see what you've got? An unshakable kingdom. And do you see how thankful we ought to be? Not only thankful, but brimming with worship, deeply reverent before God. For God is not indifferent as a bystander. He's actively cleaning house, torching all that needs to burn, and he won't do it until it's all cleansed, because God himself is a fire.
Glory to God. Woo! Yes. Hallelujah. Amen.
One thing I like about Tabernacle, Sukkot, is sitting out around the fire. And I know I'm a campfire kind of guy. Always have been a campfire. And I sit around and watch the flames burn. And one of the things when I'm looking at the flames is like, that's my past going. I mean, that's a consuming thing. You keep putting wood in, it consumes it. Put it in, it consumes it. Put it in, it consumes it. God is a consuming fire. Anything you want to give to him that you no longer want gets vaporized in the presence of the holy fire of God. Man, if that doesn't make you thankful,
Yes. Amen.
glory to God. Thankful means to be aware of and appreciative of a benefit. To be aware of and appreciative of a benefit. You know, you can have benefits that you're not aware of. I worked at Digital Equipment Corporation for several years, and as part of that, I had an option to buy stock. And I was never into stock, never have been. I am not now. I mean, stock is like, let other people do that. You know, I'm just trying to keep my stock in a heavenly place. So I just didn't pay any attention to it. And one day my manager sat down and he said, can I ask you a question? He said, why don't you buy the stock? I said, well, I'm not interested in amassing stock. He says, Don, they sell it to you at 80% of value. The next day, you cash it out. You make 20%. I said, you're kidding. You don't have to hold it. You know, this is the day it's issued to you. Tomorrow you sell it. You've made an instant 20% just by doing it. You don't have to keep it and wonder if it's going to go up and down. Just buy it and sell it. The next day they give it to you, 20% discount that day. I was there for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years before I found that every quarter I could make myself $300 or $400, $500 just by in one hand, out the other hand. I get 500 as it goes by. And it's like that is a good deal. Amen. I mean, but that was a benefit that was mine all the time. I didn't know I had the benefit. Amen. Well, there are benefits to being in the kingdom of God. How come the church never tells us about the benefits? David knew about them. Listen to this. Psalm 103, verse 2 to 5. Praise the Lord, O my soul. Forget not all his
Benefits.
Don't forget his benefits. Any of you have jobs around here?
Yes.
Other than not working for yourself. That's not a job. Working for yourself is, well, we'll talk about that later. But if you have a job, how many of you know there's benefits? You get paid.
Right.
They pay your part of Social Security. Well, oh, that's a big deal. You don't know until you're self-employed.
Yeah.
Once you're self-employed and realize, what? I gotta pay all of that myself? It's like suddenly you realize that, oh man, it was pretty good to have that pay, have that Social Security. You know, they may pay something towards your health benefits. Amen? And they may give you a vacation. Woohoo! No, you know, but I mean, that's a benefit. Come on. That's a benefit. Again, I walk around Haiti. They don't know what a vacation is.
No.
You get into the third world, they don't pay vacation. They don't know what a vacation is. What's a vacation?
What's health insurance?
What's a vacation? A vacation. What do you do on a vacation? Well, you know, you go to the beach and sit. Why would you do that? I can go out here and sit on the beach any day. I'm not working because I'm unemployed, and I'd rather be working than sitting on the beach. You know, it's like so a benefit is something that has value only if you know you have it. Huh? Come on. I mean, there are benefits that. Listen, there are benefits that I think are crazy, but the benefits that are out there in the world. My dad was a retired Army officer. He retired with enough years that they gave him 80% of his pay. Had he stayed a little longer, they would have given him 100%. I said to him, Dad, I don't know any place in the world that gives you that. I don't know any business that was going to give you that kind of benefits. You know? And not only that, the increases go up all along. You know, you're paying the Social Security for whatever you say about the Social Security system. There's benefits to it. They're crazy. I tried filling out a benefit package. I got old enough for Social Security. Well, fill it out. I got online. Do it yourself. After 4 hours, I said, here I am. I've got an advanced education degree. I've worked in math. I've worked in the corporate business world. I cannot figure out what I'm entitled to. I mean, it's not clear. I know I get this, but I don't know what this means. And if you do this, and if you, you know, I finally said, wait a minute, what am I doing? I'm a specialist in my world. Somewhere there's a specialist in that world. I went to Gardner. Sat down with this lady who just sits behind the desk, and you know what she does? She just works on Social Security benefits. She said, well, give me your paperwork, Mr. Long. And she starts looking, she says, wow, you know, you can get this. And by the way, you know, you're also eligible for this. Why am I eligible for this, you know? And wow, and at one point they said, yeah, and Jordan gets something. What? I said, what? I mean, I did. It was like, the system's insane. Why are you giving money because I have a little girl? I've had 9 of them. Yeah, but they've all grown up, but this one hasn't grown up yet, so we're going to give you a few more $100. It's like, well, give it to me. I mean, fine. I'm not going to say, no, you keep it. You know, it's like, you know, you'll tar another road or pay overtime to somebody. You know, I don't know what you'll do with it. Come on. It's a benefit. I didn't know I had those benefits. Whoa. How can you take care of a benefit, take advantage of it if you don't know it? This is your benefit book.
Yes.
This is your benefit. Quit reading it like a list of do's and don'ts of a holy God that, boy, if I step aside, oh no, the fire got me because, you know, I built my sukkah wrong. And start saying, God, this is the most amazing gift to us. This is a promise book of God. You said, if I do what you say, you'll do what you say.
That's right.
You'll do that? Where's my part? You'll do that? Where's my part? You know? I mean, a benefit, you know, I like that benefit. Where's my part? And here's the benefit. Don't forget his benefits, oh my soul. Who forgives all your sins, who heals all your diseases, who redeems your life from the pit, who crowns you with love and compassion, who satisfies your desire with good things, so that your youth is renewed like the eagles. Listen to this in the Message Bible, and then we'll begin to close here. Don't forget a single blessing. He forgives your sins, every one. He heals your diseases, every one. He redeems you from hell, saves your life. He crowns you with love and mercy, a paradise crown. He wraps you in goodness, beauty, eternal. He renews your youth. You're always young in His presence.
Yes.
Listen, let me ask you if you believe that. Because see, if you believe it, you ought to have no problem being thankful. To such a deep extent that He shouldn't have to say, be joyful. I shouldn't have to slap you and say, be joyful. Come on, I don't know about you, but when I read that my first benefit is He forgives all my sins.
All is all.
I don't know about you. Man, all of them. He forgives all my sins. My neighbor might not. Some other person might not. I don't care. He forgives all my sins. My. How much will you pay for that? My life. Secondly, He heals all your disease. Now, I know somebody and they had something and they didn't get healed. I know people who died. I know people got in the car today. I don't know them personally. People got in the car today and drove and died. That didn't say, well, I'm not going to drive because, people died when they drive. I know people who, you read it in the paper, people died flying. I don't say, well, I'm not going to go to Israel because you got to fly and you might die. Come on. All I know is what He says. I don't know where they missed it, but I want to find out, God, if it says that one of the benefits is you'll heal all my diseases, what's my part? When Digital said, we're going to give you these benefits, what's my part? Show up to work. I can do that. Show up to work on time. I can do that. I put in my time and these are my benefits. I can do that. So when it says that the benefit is He'll heal all my diseases, then I know that's His promise. And my quest in His Word is what's my part of that? And He'll tell you how. The Gospels are filled with Yeshua teaching you how to get healed every time. Every time. Get your eyes off other people. Get your eyes on what He says.
That's right.
It's a benefit we can claim. Who redeems your life from the pit? Anybody ever been in the pits? He redeems you from the pits. Yeah, a long way past. My downs now are higher than my highs used to be. That's true. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. I have dips in my life, but my dips keep getting higher. There's a dip. There's a dip. There's a dip. And you wouldn't recognize a down day because I'm still smiling, praising the Lord in the midst of it. Come on. Come on. He redeems my life from the. He's picked me up and put me on a what? High place. Isn't that what it says?
Yes.
Number 4, He crowns you with love and compassion. I want a king's crown. I'm in the company. I want to have a crown called vice president, so I can walk through the corridors of the company, and I'm a vice president. I want to have the crown of recognition. I want to be able to walk down in Fitchburg, and I have this crown, and people say, "Oh, we know him." No, He crowns you with love and compassion. See, next time you go to work, put love and compassion on your head. When your boss is picking on you, when someone's upset with you, I'm wearing love and compassion. I've got a crown on my head that says love and compassion. Love and compassion. I've got love and... Oh, sorry, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, I know I shouldn't be singing at work and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'll have the report this afternoon. Yes, sir, I understand you expected it this morning. I'll have it this afternoon for you. Yes, sir. Yeah, and the devil's trying to get mad at him because he has no right to expect that from you that quick. I mean, he doesn't ask anyone else that way. So you just be quiet. Return from where you came.
Turn to sender.
Love and compassion. Love and compassion. Your spouse says something negative to you. Love and compassion. I've got love and compassion. Come on. This stuff is real.
Amen.
It is very real if you'll simply abandon yourself into it. And finally, the 5th thing He says, He satisfies your desires with good things. Now, listen to this. He satisfies your desires with good things. That doesn't mean He's going to give you everything you think you desire, because if the desire is coming out of your flesh, it may not be a good thing for you.
That's right.
But he'll satisfy your heart's desires with good things. Here's the result. If it's godly, if it's a godly desire, when it's satisfied, here's what it does. So that your youth is renewed like the eagles. It doesn't say he's going to renew your youth like the eagles. It says he satisfies your desire so that your youth is renewed like the eagles. When you tap into this one thing, refreshing graces. When you tap into the fact that as a child of God, the deepest thing in your heart is your relationship with God, when that's fulfilled, it literally renews you. Literally renews you. Every child wants one thing from a parent. Love. Love. A lot of children, when they're misbehaving, they're just trying to get the parents' attention. Would you love me? Would you love me? What could I become important? Can I get in your radar screen? Would you love me? I used to find that my first was Scott, and when Scott was just a little baby, there'd be times that, man, I didn't know then what I know now, and church would pick on me. Doesn't that sound so bad? Church would pick on me. But I'd sit there, and I'd get in a rocking chair, and I'd take Scott to come home, and I'd just put him in that rocking chair. What are you doing? I'm rocking Scotty. No, I'm not. I'm rocking me. He'd snuggle up, and I'd go, oh, the world is so good. Isn't that amazing? And I'd say, God, what is it? I mean, this is a baby. He can't speak. He can't put his arms around me. He can't hug me. He can't say, ooh, I love you, Daddy. He can't say, and he's just a little baby. And I feel so loved. And it's because God was pouring his love into my life through him. And I realized, more than anything in this world, what I desire is to please him. I just want to be close to you, Abba. That's true in every one of your hearts if you're born again.
That's right.
You do not have a heart problem once you're born again. You have a flesh problem.
That's right.
Your flesh rebels. The old man rebels. But when you surrender to Yeshua and you have a brand new spirit, man inside of you, that heart wants to be bonded
That's right.
to Abba. Donna and I are sitting in our room the other day, and we got Bibles spread out all over the place, and we're having one of our discussions about what's going on, and we're reading books and all that. We look out at our bird feeder out there. It's got 4 little bird feeders hanging off of it, and all of a sudden, a baby blue jay lands on the rung of the bird feeders, and the mother blue jay lands next to him, and then she flies to the bird feeder. Oh, cardinal, I'm sorry, it's cardinal. And gets the seed, flies back up, and she picks it apart and puts the inside of the seed right into the baby's mouth. The baby was as big as the mama. I'm looking and then, can't that thing feed itself yet? I mean, yeah, here's this thing, beep, 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 you know, and here's his mama, who's almost a little bit smaller than the baby. Flies down, you know, and here's a beep, 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 this thing that's up there, and I'm thinking, get down there and feed yourself, you're big enough, you know. And I'm watching, see, the mama's teaching the baby bird how to get its own seed.
Yeah.
Winter's coming, baby. You're going to have to be on your own and figure that out. But when I looked at it, I was stunned by how big the baby was compared to the mama. And I had this thought, by now you should be grown up. And I heard Holy Spirit say, and by now you should be grown up. I said, Abba, yeah, it's true, I should be. And he said, but you know, when you come to me, I'll always feed you. I'll always feed you. And I thought, Abba, no matter how old I get, I'm still your child. Let me close with this story. My mother tells that a lot of times she would talk about bringing up the 3 of us children, my older brother and sister and I. And as my older brother and sister went off to college and so forth, I'm still around, and by then I'm 14, 15. And my mother would always introduce me to people that I didn't know. She said, hi, this is, she used to say Donnie, and then she finds, this is Don, he's my baby. He's my baby. And I can remember saying, you know, Mom. You know, I mean, that's embarrassing, Mom. Here I am, you know, I can shave now, Mom. You know, I mean, it's like, you know, this is my baby. So I had that talk with her, Mom. Don't call me your baby anymore. So about several weeks later, we had another opportunity, and I'm meeting someone, and she says, Abel, I'd like you to meet my son, Don. And I said, I'm the baby. And I realized something. That my teenage flesh did not want to be called the baby. But I never wanted to give up my position. I'm the baby of the family. And then when I got older and got beyond that teenage flesh, I would kind of brag on it with my brother and sister. I was Mom's favorite. Oh, she loved you guys, but I'm her favorite. No, I'm just the youngest. I'm the baby. I never want to lose that with God. I found out that for years I was, and I think many of us as Christians are trying to get into this place of maturity with Abba. God, how am I doing? Have I grown up to become a man yet? Yes, you have, son. Good, great, okay. That's great. I can strike out on my own and prove to you, God, what a man I am. I can live my life and I can put it together. Aren't you proud of me? I've become a man. And I found out that's not what's in my heart. Daddy, do you still love me? Daddy, I've messed up. Do you still love me? And Paul chose that word of all the things to describe the heart cry of a believer. Therefore we cry out to him, Abba, Father. You need to come with us to Jerusalem. You walk the streets until finally you hear a little boy about Ty's age or Josiah's age running down there. Abba! 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 And the first time you hear it, you go, because it resonates with what's inside of you. Abba. Abba. I want to be in relationship with you, God. You're first and foremost my Father in heaven. Avinu Hashem. You're my Father in heaven. Tabernacles is a time to dwell together with you. And so during this week when we celebrate, we have joy and we're very joyous, and I don't know what we'll do. We'll do whatever you want to do. But in the midst of our joy, one with another, let's remember we're brothers and sisters. The source of our joy is our Abba is here. Our Abba is present in the Sukkah with us. He's present during these 7 days to dwell among us. And we can be together as family. We can be the joy-filled people of God. Did you get anything out of this? Yes. Father, we thank you. We praise you. We love you for who you are. You are our God. You are our Savior. You are our soon-coming King. But most of all, Abba, your Daddy. You birthed us into reality. Your very breath sustains our very being. We, as it were, blink in and out of existence as you breathe life pulsating into us. Our very joy, our very life hinges on our relationship with you. Abba, you've given us time and time and time again. Your love, your faithfulness, your forgiveness, your healing, your mercy, and your grace. You've never failed us. And so we come into this season and we say, we will rejoice. We will rejoice. Oh, bless the Lord, oh my soul, and all that is within me. We will rejoice. With our whole being, with every fiber of our being. Abba, we will rejoice in your presence. What a mighty, awesome God you are. And all of God's people said, Amen. Amen. Amen.